Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, let's get to the topic of the day in college basketball. And obviously, look, with the NCAA tournament brackets out, obviously so much of America is focused on filling out their brackets. But at the same time, the coaching carousel also picked up big time on Monday. DePaul fired head coach Dave Lato. I do think, Kenny Payne, the former Kentucky assistant, might be the guy that they go after there. Keep in mind, Dwayne Peavy, the AD, worked with Kenny Payne at Kentucky. Penn State hired Micah Shrewsbury. Boston College hired Earl Grant from College of Charleston completely out of nowhere. But, of course, the story of the day was at Indiana, where after 4 years, Archie Miller was fired as the head coach at Indiana University. And, look, I hate to tell you guys this, but I said it was going to happen. Everybody else in the media, there's no way you can fire somebody with a $10 million buyout in a pandemic. And I said, look at college football. I cover college football. Gus Malzahn. $20+ million buyout, out at Auburn. Tom Herman, $20+ million buyout out at Texas. Will Muschamp, $15 million buyout, give or take $1 million or $2 million out at South Carolina. If you don't deliver in college sports in 2021, they will find the money to get rid of you, and that is what happened at Indiana. We found out after the fact, by the way, one booster by himself was willing to pay the $10 million to get out Archie Miller. And listen, I don't want to spend too much time on the Archie Miller stuff. I've talked about it in past weeks. I like Arch. He was on the podcast one time. I enjoyed talking with him. But listen, it's Indiana. It's year 4. You have all your guys. And this was the year you were supposed to make a dent. You were supposed to make a tournament run. And I think they could have. I will give Archie Miller credit. His team played hard down the stretch. They defended well. They competed. But they just weren't good enough offensively. They went through crazy offensive stretches where they couldn't get a basket. It cost them a bunch of games late in the season. Because of it, Indiana didn't make the tournament, and now Archie Miller, unfortunately, is unemployed. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at who I actually think the Indiana should call, who I think they will call, and who I do think that they won't call. And before we get into it, I should say, listen, I might be on an island on this one. I still think Indiana is a really good job. First of all, whoever takes this job will inherit a pretty decent roster. Now, obviously, some guys will probably enter the portal over the next couple days, but look, there's a very good chance that Rob Finney is back. There's a very good chance that Christian Lander is back. There's a very good chance that Race Thompson is back. So even if a few guys enter the portal, even if Trace Jackson Davis goes pro, you still have a nice base of guys to work with if you can get the next guy in place. And beyond that, Archie Miller proved that Indiana kids will still come to Indiana if you have the right recruiting pitch. So I do think this is a good job, and I do think there are some guys that might be willing to take it. So this is what I want to do. I want to give you the 4 guys that I believe Indiana should at the very least call that I do believe will take it. 3 names you can cross off the list right away, by the way. Brad Stevens, listen, pipe dream, I get it. He ain't coming to Indiana. He doesn't want to coach in college basketball, at least not right now, and at least right now he still has options. Things aren't going well with the Celtics, but he ain't going to get fired tomorrow. You're not going to wait till the end of the NBA season, which goes into May now, to go get Brad Stevens. And on top of that, even if he were let go with Boston, and I don't think he will be, guess what? He's going to have other jobs in the NBA, options in the NBA because of it. I don't think Brad Stevens is a realistic candidate. I don't think Rick Pitino is a realistic candidate. I saw that a lot on Twitter on Monday. Listen, I think Indiana holds itself to a certain standard. I don't believe that is a guy that they would want. And on top of that, Rick Pitino does have a $10 million buyout at Iona. So good luck paying $10 million to Iona, $10 million to Archie Miller just for the right to negotiate with Rick Pitino. I do think he'll be back at the Power 5, Power 6 level eventually. I don't think it'll be this soon, and I don't think it'll be this job. And then finally, the other guy you can cross off the list, Nate Oates. Listen, I love Nate Oates. I think he's a stud, but kind of like Rick Pitino. $12 million buyout for Nate Oates. So you're talking about $10 million to Archie Miller, $12 million to Alabama for the right to talk to Nate Oates, and we're talking about $22 million before you pay Nate Oates $1 or his staff. Nate Oates, he's not going to be at Alabama forever, but he ain't leaving Alabama this offseason. So with that, let's get to the 4 guys that I believe Indiana should call, and at least in theory, they have a chance of possibly getting a yes. The first one, and this is the least likely of them all, it is Chris Beard. And you call Chris Beard because he is a stud. This is kind of an incredible stat that I don't think people realize. Had there been an NCAA tournament last year, Texas Tech would have made it. If they had made it this year, which they obviously just did, Selection Sunday was yesterday, Chris Beard would have become the first head coach in Texas Tech history to take Texas Tech to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. He does that within the first 5 years at the school. It's kind of incredible. He's still only been a head coach at the D1 level for 6 seasons total now, 5 at Texas Tech, 1 at Little Rock. And it goes without saying, you know why Indiana would call him. The guy made an Elite 8 in 2018, made the Final Four, was a play or 2 away from winning a national championship in 2019, and there are very loose ties to Indiana. Remember, he is a Bob Knight disciple. He was an assistant coach for years under Bob Knight at Texas Tech, and I do think you have to at least give him a call. And here is the reason why he might say yes, because a lot of you are probably thinking, dude, you just told us Nate Oates is saying no. Why would Chris Beard say yes? Well, one, I think you give him a call because you just have to see, is he interested at some point in coaching at a basketball-only school? Texas Tech, if we're being perfectly honest, if we have a Tech fan listening, I hate to tell you, you're probably at best the 3rd best job just in the state of Texas. Forget the Big 12, forget the nation, forget the fact that it will always be a football school. And the major difference with Alabama and Nate Oates, Chris Beard has a much more manageable buyout. I looked this up on Monday, and it appears as though he only has a $3 million buyout if a non-Big 12 school wants to hire him. Why does that matter? Texas, is Chris Beard. Chris Beard is an alum of Texas, University of Texas. There was the belief that Shaka Smart was going to get fired off season, so they put that clause in his contract, $6 million for a Big 12 school, but anybody else, it's only $3 million. So for a quarter of the price that you'd have to pay to get Nate Oates out of his contract, you can get Chris Beard, and I do think you have to at the very least call him. I don't think he'll say yes. I don't think now is the right time. I kind of believe in my very loose interactions with Chris Beard. He's happy at Texas Tech. They love him there. He's an icon. He's doing things in basketball that have never been done. He has the support of his AD. There's new facilities. There's money coming in. The alums love him. I don't think you're getting a yes, but I don't blame you for at the very least trying to call. Number 2, also probably a pipe dream, but I'd give Scott Drew a call. Scott Drew is, of course, doing stuff that I don't think any of us thought was possible at Baylor. They're, of course, the number 1 team in the country, or number 2 team in the country going into the NCAA tournament, number 1 seed, Big 12 champ, first time in 50 years. And so you're probably sitting there saying, dude, Torres, what are you talking about? Scott Drew? Indiana? Are you kidding me? Why would he leave Baylor? Well, there's a couple reasons. I just mentioned that Baylor is the number 1 seed in this NCAA tournament. I get that. But let me say this. I think it's fair to ask, is this as good as it will ever get for Scott Drew at Baylor? Keep in mind, this was a program that 3 years ago, not this season, not last season, the season before, they were a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. This isn't a 10-year run at Baylor, the likes of which we've never seen. Now, they've been a very good program. He has elevated them, but let's not act like Scott Drew is on some insane run that has been going on for a decade now. They've been really good. They haven't been great until the last probably 2 or so years. When you look at it from that perspective, you also have to wonder, is this sustainable? 2 guys in their starting lineup, Mark Vital and Maceo Teague are seniors. 2 more, Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler, projected to be first-round NBA draft picks. Because of it, I don't want to say you're going to have to start completely new next year because you will have some guys back, but we're talking about probably fringe top 25 team, maybe a top 20 team, but you're always going to be competing at the top of the league with Kansas. You're always going to be competing at the top of the league with Texas, and I think it's worth at least questioning, is this as good as it gets? In my absolute best year and in a Kansas downturn, we're still just like a hair ahead of them, and Kansas still beat us this year in the regular season. So that is a thought number 1 on why Scott Drew might leave it. This just might be as good as it gets. Number 2, and this is the important part, obviously, Scott Drew is, of course, from Indiana. Played at Butler, coached at Valpo. His dad coached at Valpo. He grew up in Valparaiso, Indiana. And maybe the ties to home are real. Now, I will say in general, I do think that the whole, you got to go home, I think that stuff is overrated when you have a good job. Like, I think the whole going home stuff works and sells and really guys buy into it when they don't have any other options or they don't have better options, right? Jim Harbaugh went home to Michigan after he was fired from the San Francisco 49ers. Never forget, he turned down Michigan to go to the 49ers 4 years before. On the flip side, you look at somebody like Urban Meyer. Could have gone to Florida, could have gone to Notre Dame. Everyone says, oh, Notre Dame, he coached there, it's his dream job. And he was like, you know what? A lot easier to win in Florida. I'm going to Florida. So I don't know that I buy the whole you got to go home stuff with Scott Drew. But hey, give him a call, offer him a lot of money, and see if he's interested. Maybe he is interested in leaving, maybe he's not, but I don't blame them for at least giving a call. Number 3, and this is the most interesting one, is obviously Eric Musselman at Arkansas. And that is a name that has picked up a ton of steam over the last couple weeks. And what I'll say is this, is like, look, obviously everybody knows I have had Eric Musselman on this podcast a million times, but I have never talked to him about other jobs. I never would. That's just not the way that I operate in this business. I respect people's privacy. I would never, ever, ever, not only not ask Eric Musselman, but not ask any of these guys about jobs, opportunities, what they would take, what they wouldn't. And so with Eric Musselman, I really don't know what kind of job would get him away from Arkansas. He has an NBA background. Does he someday want to get back to the NBA? Would he be interested in another college job? Would he leave Arkansas at all for another college job, or is he content being at Arkansas? And those are the questions that Indiana has to ask, and that's why you hire a search firm, and that's why they do their due diligence to do the homework, so you know if this is a guy that is actually interested in taking this job. Now, from Indiana's perspective, it makes sense why you would hire him. This guy has been a stud at the college level everywhere he goes. He immediately flips over rosters. He immediately has success. He went to Nevada and in year 1 won 21 games. By year 2, made the NCAA tournament. Year 3 and 4 also made the NCAA tournament. So now you're talking about a guy that in 3 years has completely flipped the Nevada program. Final 3 years at the school, 28 wins, 29 wins, 29 wins, then goes to Arkansas, deals with all sorts of injuries in year 1, goes 20-12. Then this year obviously explodes 22-6, and the guy immediately has success. I've raved about him. I've talked about him on this podcast. The guy is really good at what he does. And the reason I rave about him is because he's really good. I mean, you could criticize me for a lot of things. I don't give guys credit that don't deserve credit. I'm not like, I'm not going to say it, but there was a very prominent media member praising Tom Crean during the entire SEC tournament. It made me smack my head. Tom Crean is terrible. At least if I'm going to praise you like a Nate Oates, like an Eric Musselman, like a, frankly, John Calipari before this year, at least it's warranted. With Muss, though, I think there are some real things that could keep him at Arkansas. One, and again, I have no insight into what his interest is. Frankly, I have no insight into what Scott Drew's interest would be or Chris Beard's interest would be. But with Muss, I'll tell you straight up, there are a couple things that I think are working in Arkansas's favor. One, first of all, does he want to leave now? I mean, you are just now starting to build this thing. You're having the most success you've had in this program in 25 plus years since Corliss Williamson, since Corey Beck, since Nolan Richardson. And I think it's fair to ask, like the best still feels like it is ahead at Arkansas. Yes, you're going to lose Moses Moody after this year. Yes, a bunch of guys will probably graduate as seniors and move on. But Devo Davis, Jalen Williams, a lot of these young guys are going to be back. Connor Vanover is projected to be back. Desi Sills. So you have a nice base in play to continue to build on this. And guess what? Transfers are drooling at the opportunity to go play for Eric Musselman after this year, after they see the success that all these guys had. The second reason that I just don't know that Eric Musselman would want to leave Arkansas, I don't really know what Indiana can offer that Arkansas can't. Yes, Indiana has prestige and a few more banners in the building, a couple more national championship banners, but I'll be honest, I don't know that how much coaches really care about that. I don't know how much it matters to coaches in terms of, this team won a bunch back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Well, it's 2021. Players don't care. Players care about what's happening now, and I'm telling you right now, I don't think it's a secret. Arkansas is a significantly hotter brand as I record here on March 15th, March 16th than Indiana is right now. And from a money perspective, from a facilities perspective, there is nothing that Indiana can offer Eric Musselman that Arkansas can't actually offer them as well. We all know the reason Eric Musselman went to Arkansas, there were things that Arkansas could do that Nevada couldn't from a financial standpoint, from a facility standpoint, etc. There is nothing, I'm telling you, nothing Indiana can offer Eric Musselman financially that Arkansas couldn't. And the third reason, I think this is an important one, the SEC is a lot easier to win in than the Big Ten. And this stuff matters to coaches. Now, some guys just want the challenge, and I'm not saying Eric Musselman doesn't want the challenge. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is that when I look at the situation at Indiana, it's just really hard to win in the Big Ten right now. It's first of all, you play 20 league games. You have the commitment of the ACC Big Ten Challenge. You have the commitment of the Gavitt Games, which is the Big East crossover. So you're playing essentially 22, 23, 24 power conference games before the season even starts. They're already scheduled for you. On top of that, the league's never been better. You want to go into that league right now and bang your head against the wall against Juwan Howard, who's a stud, and he ain't going anywhere at Michigan. Brad Underwood, who's a stud, and he ain't going anywhere at Illinois. Chris Holtman ain't going anywhere. Even the programs that are kind of in the middle. Maryland makes the tournament every year. You criticize Mark Turgeon for a lot. They make a lot of NCAA tournaments. Wisconsin, have they been great under Greg Gard? No, but they make the tournament every year. Iowa, Fran McCaffrey. There are a lot of good programs. And so to me, if I was Eric Musselman, and I have not spoken to him about this, and I will not speak to him about it, he's got an NCAA tournament to get ready for, I'm just telling you, I wouldn't go to the Big Ten right now. The Big Ten's a bloodbath. I think Archie Miller in a different world, a different universe, previous years, he could have won enough to keep that Indiana job because the Big Ten was down. But now you look at it, and everybody's good. Everybody has money. Everybody spends. Everybody pays their coaches well. Everybody pays their assistants well. The SEC pays very well for head coaches, assistant coaches, facilities, etc. But look at the bottom of that league. Vandy, South Carolina, Texas A&M this year, whoever. There's a lot of winnable games in the SEC. That is why I would stay if I was Eric Musselman. We'll see what happens. Finally, I'll wrap with the fourth guy, and the guy that I think you should go higher, and that's John Beilein. And it's crazy because I brought this up probably about, 2 weeks ago? You know, people that listen to the podcast, you guys know what it was. It was 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. I got a lot of pushback from Indiana fans. Oh, he's too old. Oh, he's 67. He's too old. We can't have him. Who cares? Your team stinks. Your program stinks. Your program has made one Elite Eight since 1993, one Final Four since 1993. I don't care if this guy is now 68 years old. Why do I care? Jim Boeheim is 74. Get him in for 4, 5, 6 years. Let him build up the program. First of all, forget build up the program. Keep in mind, I told you earlier, there is talent in this Indiana program. If John Beilein took over this same roster, just minus Trace Jackson Davis, with everybody else that's projected to come back, I think they're an NCAA tournament team next year with John Beilein. Get one shooter out of the transfer portal, shoot 34% from three instead of 30% from three, you're an NCAA tournament team. So that's one. Two, I don't care about his age because guess what? Even if you only get John Beilein for 6 years, Jim Boeheim's 74. You can get John Beilein for 6 years. Guess what? He goes to 4 NCAA tournaments in 6 years, and I think he could go to even more. How about this? That job is going to be a lot better in 6 years than it is now. Now, there are some things that would keep potentially Indiana from making the move. One is the age. Two, I just don't know if John Beilein wants to coach again. I mean, never forget, this is a guy that started as a high school coach back in the day, went to junior college, low major, mid-major, high major, and he might just be done with it. He talked openly about the fact that he despised recruiting. He was tired of recruiting. He was tired of dealing with players, with the surrounding people around them, with texting kids all day long, back and forth every single day just to keep them engaged. And so maybe he's not interested. Two, there is talk about some staffing things that may be going on. His son is previously a head coach. He left his previous job for personal reasons. There's talk about would he want to bring his son with him. It is not my place to speculate, but these are conversations that are being had. It has been printed, so I don't feel like I'm speaking out of school here, but he might want to bring his son. Is that a deal breaker for Indiana? I don't know. I don't think it should be. I'm just telling you, this is the guy I would go get. You get John Beilein, you're in the NCAA tournament next year, and beyond that, I think he goes just about every single year. You win a lot, you have success, and you hand it off to the next guy around 2025, 2026, 2027, whatever it is, and this program is in a lot better shape.